So, React Challenge, upper intermediate, things start getting a bit spicy here, yeah? So, as usual, let's try to fully understand the question, and then we'll focus on the details of the exercise. So, we are expected to create a component, terms and conditions, no props, apparently, yeah? So, that should simplify things a bit. The next line tells us you should write, that's a bit hard to read the right-hand side, but if you pay attention to the naming conventions, it's a stateless component. So in other words, so the exercise is inviting us to create a function with hooks if necessary. So just to get an overview about the structure of the HTML, so we have a label, we have a button with a class name terms, and we have a button with a class name conditions. So then the idea is, by default, by definition, that's a classic form where you have to accept terms and conditions. So generally speaking, you got two checkboxes or one checkbox to accept both in one go. But of course, you can have buttons instead. Yeah? So you have to explicitly click on the terms button and click on the conditions button to click to get a message like both terms and conditions were accepted. And if not, then our logic should just display this has been accepted, or the other one has been accepted, or nothing has been accepted at all. That's quite simple, actually. I'm quite surprised that you had difficulties in this problem. I think the main problem here is about writing a ternary operator, probably, where you set up if else, something like that. All right, so first things first, I'm gonna create some hooks. So because I got two properties, so to keep things simple, like const terms set terms equals user state. So by default, what should be the default state, guys, of the terms? False. That's correct. It would be a bit weird, right? If you come across a website where you want to sign up, and by default, do you accept terms and conditions, and it's marked by default? I don't think that's even legal, right? Because the user needs to take an explicit action. So what about the conditions? Pretty much the same thing, right? So conditions, comma, set conditions equals user state false. Yeah. So the setup is pretty simple, I believe. So now let's talk about the markup. Let's talk about the JSX path. So I could surround everything by a div, but I'm going to use a fragment just to simplify my markup a bit. I need a label. We'll see later on what the hell should we display in the label, but that's for now. And then we have a button, the button to accept terms, and then eventually we'll have a button to accept the conditions. So let me focus on the first one, and once we are happy with it, I will probably copy and paste it. So button, class name, what's the class name, guys, of the first button? Terms, correct? Single or double quotes? Why? That's correct, Lauren. Yeah, we use double quotes in JSX because that's the classic way HTML works, has been working, yeah, from the beginning of the times. All right, so we accept the terms, and then we need an onClick event, right? OnClick to swap the value, yeah? So onClick. Can anyone tell me can anyone complete that line number 10 for me? Set terms, and then accepted. That's correct. So we are swapping, yeah? We're switching the value on and off. So if you didn't accept and you click, then the terms will be marked as accepted. But if you change your mind because you've spent 4 hours of your life reading the terms and conditions, yeah, and you click again, then the terms won't be accepted anymore, right? I think that makes sense. All right, so that's the terms component. So I'm gonna copy it. It's a bit dangerous, right, when you copy and paste because it's easy to fail. Conditions, pretty much the same thing, right? Set conditions, and then not conditions, right? And then accept conditions. I don't think the test is any opinionated about the content of the buttons. I don't think so. All right, so now the problem is in here. Problem is about how do we orchestrate the message that the user receives. I mean, guys, I'll tell you something. We got two booleans, right? Terms and conditions. So how many scenarios, how many possibilities do we have to deal with? It is 4. That's correct. It's 4. Yeah, because if we got two booleans, what are all the possible values? True, 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 false, false, true, and false, false. Eh? All the possible options. So we need essentially to prepare 4 different messages for the user. So first of all, happy path. Imagine that the user has accepted everything. So if I got terms and I got conditions, that's the easiest way, the easiest one, right? Then what? Then terms and conditions accepted. Terms and conditions accepted. It's very easy to fail on the accuracy if you miss a comma or a capital, or, you know, what, all these sort of things. But I don't care much. I hope that all the problems we got today is about writing a word in capitals where it should be a lowercase, something like that. All right. Else. Else means one of the conditions is not truthy. So, for instance, we can do if terms. So if we are here on line number 11, yes, that means terms have been approved, but conditions haven't been approved yet. Because if conditions got approved already, and terms got approved already, the code will stop here. Yeah? So if both terms and conditions are checked, then everything accepted. Else, if terms have been accepted, that means the conditions haven't been accepted, right? So here we should display terms accepted. Else, I could do on the other way around. If conditions were accepted, if I'm here, that means the conditions were accepted, but the terms were not accepted yet. So here I could say the other way around, right? Conditions accepted. And then finally, if I'm still alive on line number 14, that means everything is falsy. Yeah, nothing has been accepted yet. So nothing accepted yet. What do you think, guys? Is this going to work or not? All right, I'm not fully convinced. I'm 85% sure this is going to work. So let's run it. There you go. Yeah, see, you got confetti time. Cool, guys. Why was that question? Where do you have difficulties? Why was the question so complicated? Ah, so I see. So here you type true, right? You hard coded it. I see. No, I mean, that's fine. Guys, that's absolutely fine. I'll tell you something. If you don't really like, and actually that's a good point. So I think the community guidelines about how to code with React says that the HTML part should remain the simpler, the better. Yeah? And what that means? What that means is here, instead of hard coding everything, we could, for instance, create a variable called const message, and then look, then I can move everything, looking after, obviously, probably we need to do a bit of, you know, magic with the, not magic, we need to look after the indentation a bit, yeah? See, we can do that. We can create a variable, we can prepare the variable, and then the only thing we need to do is to display whatever that variable is. What do you think, guys? We don't need, oh, sorry, of course we need to close the parentheses. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was a typo. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's a bit better. Yeah, that's a bit better because essentially, look, your HTML part, the visual part of the component gets simpler. So fine, you may care about what the message is, but what if you don't care about what the message is? What if you want to focus on the button? Yeah, part. I think that helps to delegate the component, to delegate the complexity, because now you know, you are essentially separating things. You can even create a function for the message. So instead of creating a variable, you could create a method, get message. Yeah. So now instead of calling the variable, you call the function. That's the same thing. So obviously there are different ways of solving the same problem, but I particularly prefer this one because I think it helps from a readability point of view. Any questions? No? All right. So let me have a look to your what you proposed. I don't think there are many ways to solve that question, by the way. Well, we'll see. All right, so actually only Lauren managed to solve it, and actually she did pretty much the same thing, you see. So actually, let me zoom the screen out a bit because otherwise that code is very hard to read. I will zoom it in again in a second. So if you hold on with me, here you go. You see. So Lauren did pretty much the same thing. Button and then pretty much the same expression. So yeah, that's literally I did a copy paste of what she did. Yeah? So that's pretty cool. All right, so and it didn't work for Elena. So back to what she said before. Actually, that's quite similar to what we did before. But the main problem was, look. So she was setting the value of terms and conditions to true. So once she checked these buttons, it was impossible for the user to undo that operation, yeah, which is not great. Imagine that you go to a website, you mark the terms and conditions, but you cannot unmark it afterwards. It's a bit strange. But apart from that, I think the structure is fully correct. So that's just something quite simplistic, Elena. Cool. Anything else, guys? No. All right. So let me check next one. Question number 4. Aha. What the hell is that? So we got an input, and the input has a prop default text, and the default text may change depending on the scenario. Yeah? And then that component is expected to have 2 HTML elements. First of all, an input and then a label. And then we just want to type on the input. So we want to reflect what the user has typed at some point, right? So that if I type foo, then the message should say the type text is foo. If I type hello, the message should say the type text is hello. Something like that. Don't think that's particularly complicated. But let's go step by step. So first of all, let me type the function name, function input. And then what else? I'm gonna return. I'm not sure about any usage of hooks or anything like that, but for now, let me focus on the HTML part because I think that's relatively simple. So we've got a couple of things, right? We've got an input, first of all. The order doesn't matter, guys. You can put the label on top of the input or maybe at the bottom underneath. That's up to you, right? Type text, and then I go to label, and the label will say something like the type text is yeah, and then that actually invites me to think that I need a hook to keep track of what the user types into the input. So let me create a variable. Let me create a hook call, I don't know, text maybe, and typed. Oh, sorry, set text. Set text equals user state, and then what has the user type? I don't know. For now, let's leave it as an empty string. So now I got an input. So how, guys, can we track? How can we detect any change into the input field? That's correctly given. On change, and then what? Yep. Interesting, Vicky. So e.target.value, that's correct. That's the standard way of capturing whatever the user has typed. The hook. So what do you mean to do here? That's correct. Yeah. Whenever the user types something into the input, we want to update the hook. And what's the new value? Whatever the user has typed. Guys, do we need the parentheses surrounding the argument? All right. And then here, that's now a piece of cake, right? So the type text is text. Now, what do you think? Is that gonna work? Why not, Max? Ah, nice one. Brilliant. Yeah, I wasn't thinking about that, but of course, you're absolutely right. On chains, that's correct. And now, is that gonna work? Why not, Lauren? That's correct. That's correct, Lauren. Look what happened if I test it. It's not gonna work. By default, we say the default text is, which is correct because by default, we got an empty string. However, the default text should be the type text is family. And family, where the hell is that coming from? That's because, guys, remember that the component is receiving a prop called default text. So anyone apart from Lauren can tell me what else do I need to do to fix the problem? Okay, so now give me a second. You're right. You obviously know how to solve the problem, Elena. So now Elena is saying that we need to do something here. Can anyone apart from Lauren and Elena tell me what the hell I need to do on line number 1? That? All right, I can, even though I cannot see anybody, I imagine half of you are with weird faces now, right? So I'm not sure some of you disagree on that. Whoa. That's correct. So typing default Vicky is the same as typing Vicky, right? It's gonna make the same effect. Yeah, so that should be default text. Why default text? Because that's the name of the prop, yeah? That's it. Cool. Anything else, guys? All right. It works. Let me have a look to your code, to your proposals. So that was question number 4. Let me scroll down a bit. Question number 4, here it is. That's not very readable, but it's not because of your fault, obviously, that's because of the resolution. But I think we can have an idea, right? So Lawrence, he did this literally same thing. Same thing for Vicky, literally same thing for you both. So that's good. And then Elena, she did exactly the same thing as well. Let me copy what Elena did. I'm gonna. All right, so a few things. That works, guys, right? If I evaluate it, that works, and that's great. However, there are few tiny but important details. Yeah. So first of all, Vicky said parentheses are not necessary. Okay? So you think you put it? Well, all right. I'll do something. Look. Well, maybe I add the wrong number of parentheses, but give me a second. Let me try to do that right. So, in theory, if I add 2 parentheses, it's not liking it. That's a bit weird. I thought that likes 1 but not 2. All right. Or can I? All right. Let me try to do something. Can you put parentheses on the right hand side, maybe? See? So now I can argue, hey, look at how cool my code is, right? I put 27 parentheses and it works. The thing is, guys, there is something fundamental. Coding is a complicated thing, yeah? So, if You remove code, and it doesn't make any difference in terms of readability, performance, whatever, then remove them. Yeah. Is the code more readable? No, sorry, is the code more performant by having to remove the parentheses? No, that's not going to make any difference from a performance point of view. And what about humans? Is that code more readable? I don't think so. I mean, if you said no, to me the code becomes much more readable, then fine, then do it, right? Yeah. That's all right. That's all right. So yeah, I mean, again, is not a big deal. It's not a big deal. Yeah, and you may argue. I'll tell you, you may argue that. Like you may say, all right, but if I got, for instance, multiple arguments, I need a parenthesis. So for consistency reasons, I want to leave them all the time. Fine. Yeah, I'm not gonna go that deep in that discussion. Yeah, that's fine. But what else, guys? From what else? Yeah, so the thing is, Elena is making it more complicated. That's okay. That's okay. So what Elena is doing is she's working with HTML or JSX to be more precise. Suddenly, she's moving to JavaScript because of curly braces, and she's interpolating the expression, which is that's okay. That's okay. But look, if I remove some characters, then it still works, right? So once again, the same theory. If you remove some code and it doesn't make any difference, then what's the point of having that code in? Yeah? Unless the code becomes more readable, because you may be thinking about semicolons. To me, semicolons help to understand the code. But maybe that's a bit personal, but to me, that code is even more readable than using the backticks with the curly braces and everything, right? Any other tiny elegance warning on things that we could improve here? Okay, that's an interesting point. So, but Lauren is suggesting to do something like that. But to me, okay, you can do that. Absolutely, that's absolutely fine. My theory is, if the whatever you type doesn't go beyond the ruler, it's okay to leave it like that. Yeah, I'm not extremely opinionated. Can you remove the fragment? I don't know. You tell me, guys. Can we remove the fragments? No. That will throw an error because now we have two root elements, which is not valid. So we need the fragments. Fragments are a good thing here, right? So let me show you. Actually, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm talking bullshit. But let me go to Airbnb JavaScript style guide, and let me see. Let me check something. And actually, I think that's a very healthy exercise, guys. If you're in the middle of a job interview, feel free to check Airbnb, because they will tell you whether you are following the right approach or not. So destructuring. Use object structuring, blah 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 blah. But implicitly here, you can see that when you use the structuring, there is a space surrounding your variables, between your variables and the curly braces. So if you can see that Elena didn't put any space here. Yeah? I know it's a very subtle detail, but for an experienced eye, it takes 1 second to realize these tiny details. Yeah? And that these tiny details makes a difference between a good developer and an excellent developer. Cool. Anything else? No? All right. Fantastic. So let's do the last one. Create a chess game. That's a classic problem that is much easier to solve using hooks than using a class. And I don't know how you solve it. I'll figure it out in a minute. But I would like to invite you to solve the problem using both approaches, using a class and using hooks. I'm going to use hooks straight away. But it goes without saying that the problem can be solved using a class. So let's try to understand what the problem is. So you got a component called chess. It receives two props, white and black. And the idea is that obviously the chess has two sides, top and bottom. So the idea is whoever is in the top position is gonna play with black. Whoever is at the bottom is gonna play with whites by default. Yeah, something a bit off topic, guys. Remember, if you are typing, if you are not attending the session, at least mute yourself because it feels a bit weird, right? I've seen that many times in a job interview. Why the hell someone attends a job interview and is typing in the middle of the interview? I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, so we got 2 labels and a button. Yeah? Why do we have a button? Because eventually we're going to click on the button and we're going to swap. Yeah. So by default, whoever plays with blacks is on top and whoever plays with whites is at the bottom. When we press the button, we're going to change. Yeah. So whoever plays with whites is going to sit on top. Whoever plays with blacks is going to sit at the bottom. Yeah? Something like that. Do you understand what the problem is, at least, guys? What the problem talks about? Have you ever played chess, guys? So if I show you a chess board, so that's a chessboard, right? So I like the picture. Outline of chess. Sorry. Come on, Google. I want that picture. Another one. Come on, another one. I found a good one. Where was that? It's gone forever. I know. It's here. All right. You see? That's the idea. So the player sitting on top. Yeah. If you see that layout, plays with blacks. Whoever sits at the bottom plays with whites. And at some point they are gonna change. Yeah, because of whatever reason. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna create a red component to deal with that layouts. All right. So again, I'm gonna use hooks. So I'm gonna create a hook variable called top and set top because I will decide who sits on top. Yeah. Use a state. Actually, wait. That's a class. I don't want to use a class. Eh? Yeah, correct. Eh? That's correct, Vicky. I want to use a function. Chess. And now, can anyone tell me what should be the default value of top, the top position? Who plays on top by default? White or black? It is black. So can we, what should we do, guys? What should we type here? Black? That's correct. That's correct. The exercise, the assertion is telling us the person playing on top versus the person playing at the bottom. Yeah. In other words. So here we got that information facilitated for us. So we got white, black. Yep. The order doesn't matter, obviously. So now, by default, the person playing on top plays with blacks. Yeah? So I'm gonna pass black, and then obviously we need to deal with the other side of the board, right? Bottom and set bottom, and that will play in white. Any questions so far? No. Right. So now let's talk about the HTML bit. So we got a couple of labels and a button. So I'm going to use fragments. And then let me present the first label. Class name. Oh, what the hell I'm doing? Class name equal top. And then bottom. Yeah. What should I type here? Top. Yeah, that's correct. So that makes sense, right? So we assign whoever is on top to the element with class name top. You see, the code becomes quite predictable, I believe. So I'm pretty much sitting for the bottom position. Yeah? And that's gonna be okay until we click on the button, because there is no button. Yeah, but at least until here, everything should be okay. Well, obviously this is failing, right? Simulate should run, blah blah blah. We don't have any button, so we don't click anywhere. Let me adjust the button just for testing purposes, because I want the button to be there. I want to fail somewhere else. You see, now it's hard to believe because the exercise is not highlighting the line that is failing, but you can trust me if I tell you that all the highlighted bits should be okay, but once we click on the button, the last two assertions are wrong because the players are not moving. Obviously, the players are not moving because we are not triggering, we are not dealing with that scenario. So I'm gonna create a new function on click equals swap, for instance, and swap is gonna be a function. Remember that you can either type function swap and then you do your code here inside, or you can create a function using a constant. Yeah, both that's a good question. There are some subtle differences. I think most of the time it doesn't really matter. So well, if you use a constant, that plays well with consistency because look, set top and set bottom, they are constant. So you can take a function using the same coding style. Another advantage of using a constant is, technically speaking, you can inline something. So you can do something like that. If you have a function, you can do that, right? I mean, with a function, you will need to do something like that. So the code is, not that concise, I hope. And then, however, there is an advantage about using functions. I'm not going to explain that right now. But if I create a function called hello, then I can call the function here, or I can call the function there. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when you call the function. It doesn't matter if you call the function before you declare it or after you declare it. However, well, fair enough. Yeah, I'm not against that. But then the only thing I want to say is that technically speaking, that's correct. Yeah. Other question is whether you like it or not, but that's correct. However, if you do that, that's gonna fail. That's gonna fail because you cannot call a constant function before you declare it. Yeah, it's okay to do it after, but not before. So you see, there are some subtle differences. If you want to explore a bit more about why is that and the consequences and things like that, there is a classic job interview questions for senior developers, but you are more than invited to explore that a bit, which is called hoisting. Do you know what hoisting means? That's a classic job interview questions for senior developers. Yeah, I don't think we're going to have time in this bootcamp to go through it, but it's something that you can easily investigate by yourself if you do a bit of googling. Yeah, and of course, if you have any question about it, just let me know. All right, so just trying to keep it simple. I think actually using constant is becoming more trendy. I'm not necessarily opinionated about that, but if you check code snippets created by the community, 80% of the time they use constants rather than functions. Yeah. So that's what I want to do now. So I'm going to create a function called swap, and then I'm going to swap the variables. So the only thing I need to do is, what do we have now on top? Well, whatever was at the bottom. And what do I have at the bottom? Well, on the other way around, right? Whatever it was on top. That's it. So let's see if it works. Yes, it does work. Questions? Aha, that was actually my next question. What happened, guys? What happened? I think it's the fourth time we go through that problem, right? What happened if we put parentheses in the line number 14? No, wait, Max, no, that's not right. Swap is a function. You declare use a constant, but swap is a function. It is a function. So it is correct to call the function in that way. However, Max, what happened if we do that? that's gonna work probably. However, look, we render the component, and then is the component gonna wait until the user clicks on the button to call the swap function? No, it's not gonna wait because we are calling the function straight away. Because we call the function immediately, pop, that piece of code will be evaluated. And then what happened in React when you change the state? Correct, Vicky, re-renders. So we re-render, and then we got the same problem again. We call swap function again. So pop, we come here. So we update the state. That's correct. It will keep switching, and eventually your browser will explode. Yeah, because it's an infinite loop essentially what you are creating. Yeah, so be careful. Be careful. There are two ways of solving the problem. Either you do that. Yeah? So then you are essentially protecting yourself. It will call the swap function only when React calls that button, or the shorter version, which is the reference. That's correct, Vicky. That's the reference. That's fine. That's fine. That's a good. Yeah. If you are using hooks, that is definitely easier, right? You trim your code. It's easier. However, if you are using classes, that's not gonna work. If you remember when we introduced stateful components, I told you cannot do that when you use classes, because if you do that, you are breaking what we call lexical this. Yeah, that is something that we explain when we introduce classes. I'll come back to that point again in the last week of the bootcamp. Yeah, because I would like to talk about lexical this a bit. Yeah. So long story short, are you using a hook? Do that. Are you using a class? Do that. Anything else, guys? Yeah. Yeah. It is. And that's the reason, Max, why hooks are the future of React. Because it just simplifies your code, right? However, I know that you want to focus on hooks because they are easier, simpler, hassle-free, whatever. But guys, don't ignore classes, because if you ignore classes, you are going to have problems because the company is likely to ask you about classes. I'm going to do something. If anyone uses a class, I'll leave it here. If no one uses a class to solve this problem, I will solve it by myself using a class. Fantastic. That's great. Vicky. All right. So that was question number 5. Actually, look. Oh, that's great. Everyone. Well, not everyone. So everyone who solved the problem, Lauren and Vicky, they both use a class. That's great. I'll check your code in a minute. All right. So wait, Vicky, don't spoil Elena's code, please. Thank you. All right, so we got, look, we can see Elena and Vicky side by side. Not Elena, sorry, Lauren and Vicky side by side. I'm sure the code looks quite similar, right? You see, I really like this exercise because you can analyze different coding styles. Which one do you prefer? Why? The code, is very similar. So, for instance, talking about Lauren, remember to add space surrounding your curly braces. Yeah. So that's a tiny thing. Switch sides, I like. I think the method name is quite cool. What else? I like to use a fragment to simplify your code a bit. I know you are a big fan of separating things into new lines. That's okay. I'm not going to complain about that. That's absolutely fine. Yeah, so that looks, it's well indented. That code looks very tidy, very well organized, well thought. Yeah, so that's really good. About Beaky, it's pretty much the same thing. So Beaky move the object properties and new lines. I like Beaky. You see, Beaky's using destructuring. I like that because then the code becomes simpler. And actually, Beaky is proving to the employee that she knows how the structuring works. So I think that line is really great. You may use a fragment here. I think having a div is fine if you want to style it, or you add a class, you want to add a class name, something like that. But if you don't want to add any styling, unless you have a really good reason, you may just want to have everything in one block. That's fine. But otherwise it's a bit necessary, I believe. And then rename the method to change player. Okay, change player. Yeah, I think I prefer switch sides because it tells me a bit more about what's the action about. But yeah, change player I think is good enough. All right. So what about Elena? Let's try to understand why it didn't work for Elena. Yes, a few things that. So she's mixing things, right? So she's declaring class method in a function method, which is not right. And also, I think she messed around with the variable names because she created a new variable called white, but we already got white here. So rather than playing with white and black, I think we should play with top and bottom. That should simplify things a bit. Yeah. Cool, good stuff, guys. That was a very good challenge. Again, to me, if you think that you somehow understood what you've done or what they've done, to me that's not enough, because watching what other people does is much simpler than doing it by yourself. So if you fail on any of the questions, and that means everyone apart from Lauren, please go back to the challenge and play again with it, because you definitely need to practice a bit more with it. Yeah. Anything else? Any final thoughts? No? Cool. Fantastic. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you